Shooters, welcome into another episode of the Shooters Touch podcast. Super excited today. We have an extra special guest with us. Drew Hanlen is joining us on the podcast to talk about his new book that's coming out here in February, Stop Bullshitting Yourself, which I'm really excited to get into. But before, Drew, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on. This is going to be fun.
I'm excited. So let's start with this book, Stop Bullshitting Yourself. Basically, what it is this is breaking down film, going back and giving yourself a blueprint to looking at the receipts to make yourself better. Am I wrong, or what? How would you describe it?
No, definitely. I mean, it really is about, the process that I use with these NBA athletes to help them get, great results. And then I use that same process to help my dad lose 90 pounds in a calendar year. And, everybody keeps asking me, like, what are the parallels between sport and, life? And I was like, there's so many parallels, obviously. And so, the first part of the book helps people identify the things that are holding them back. We all have that one thing, the bad habit, the excuse that we hang on to, that no matter how justifiable it seems, it just holds us back. And so it's identifying that one thing that that can take your life to the next level, take your game to the next level, take your business to the next level, take your body to the next level, whatever it is that you want to change. Then after that, I use this blueprint that I've used for years that coaches love, players love. It just simplifies the system so that you can actually, break one big, thing that feels too much into manageable chunks. So I take them through that in the book, and then talk about the mindset, because a lot of times people know exactly what to do, but then they don't follow through with action and actually do it. So we talk about that. And then I basically let them actually fill out their own blueprint during the book, and share a ton of never told before stories from NBA athletes, entrepreneurs. I'm really excited. It's something that I wish I had when I was younger. But I'm really excited that I can actually give it to the world. But I mean, it's cool. Like all the artwork I'm looking at now, like it's got diagrams and, fill in the spaces. So by the time you read it, not only are you entertained and motivated, but also you actually have your blueprint. So my goal is by the end of the last page, you have exactly step-by-step system that you need to get the exact result that you want.
So I feel like you either fall in two trains of thought. One, you're either a reader and you love to read and you plow through books, or two, you're not. And unfortunately, there's a lot of us. I think maybe we're in similar parallels in that we don't read as much as we would like to, but it feels like this is super digestible. Is that something that you tried to purposely break up into segments?
It's crazy because a lot of the stories were stories that I used to send as text messages to my guys. So it
Okay.
would be something like, let's say last year, Tyrese Maxey, wanted to get to 26 points a game. And he was like, bro, 26, that seems like a lot. Like to average 26. My teammate is Joel Embiid, who leads the league in scoring. And I'm like, well, you averaged 20 last year. And then I'd say, hey, let me share a little story about Brad Beal. When Brad Beal was averaging 25 points a game, I said, can you average 30? The previous season, only one player had averaged 30 points a game. And Brad was like, bro, only one person, I think it was James Harden. He's like, James averaged 30. That was the only person. Like, there's only 11 people in my lifetime that had averaged 30, because back then it was a little bit harder than it is now to average 30 points a game. And I said, well, you're averaging 25. Let's break that into 5 points. You got to average 5 more points. That means you could make one more three, or you could make one more layup a half. You could make two more free throws. Like, and I said, let's not focus on the 30 points. Let's focus on the 5 points, the gap between where you are and where you want to get to. And then Brad averaged back-to-back seasons 30 points a game. So Tyrese, I said, listen, here's a story from Brad. And then I'd send it to him, and he was like, wow, all I got to do is average 6 more points. That means, if I shoot two more threes, one more three a half, well, I'm going to probably make, one of those. And then if I, do this and that, and it was like, oh, this is very obtainable. And so that's what it was. It was just, it's bite-sized information. And it's funny, I gave it to Zach LaVine, and he flipped right open to one of the chapters about him. And his was pretty cool because it shares a story about him in high school. And a lot of athletes can resonate with this, but he didn't get invited to this elite workout. He was at one of my camps, and I was working out John Wall at the time. And John invited, Reebok invited 10 of the best players from the camp, and Zach wasn't invited. Zach came up to me and said, hey, Coach Drew, this is before I know who he is. This is before he's highly ranked or anything. Hey, Coach Drew, is there any way I could come to the workout and just watch so I can learn everything you're teaching these guys? I said, bring your shoes. And that night he showed up, and I said, let's go. You're doing the workout. He said, but I wasn't invited. I said, I don't care. This is my workout. Come on. I loved your attitude that you were going to show up and just watch to learn. And that night we played 5-on-5. We scrimmaged high school kids versus NBA kids. Zach got a steal, went down and did a between leg dunk from almost the free throw line. And he's just shot up like literally, he became an NBA prospect. And that's how we started training together. And I always talk about those kind of mentalities, but I think that we live in a day and age of everybody, that knows exactly what they need to do, but they don't actually do it. And so that's what I wanted is I wanted a bunch of bite-sized things where you can pick up the book and read it cover to cover, or you can pick it up, read it for, 2 pages, because the longest section is 2 pages. So everybody can, you might say, man, I'm struggling with my mentality. Okay, here's this story right here and this story right here. Man, I'm really struggling with my work ethic. Well, right here and right here. Oh, I'm really struggling with connecting with something that fuels me to actually go all in. Well, here and here. So basically the book is broken down into little stories that coaches can like slap up on their bulletin board to motivate their players, and players can read to really connect with some of their favorite athletes in the world.
That's awesome. I've seen on a couple of things too that you talked about and kind of made me think of this through that. Is you talk about 100% is easier than 90%. And so, which is interesting, and it kind of makes you think a little bit as you're going through, and like, what does that 100% look like versus, like you said, doing 90%, going halfway and not completing or not following through on something. And so, walk me down that road a little bit on where that thinking came from.
I mean, it came from everything that I do. It started with, when I was younger, I was 12 years old. I gave up sweets. And, it was a month-long challenge. And I did it because I wanted to just, get off sweets. I knew sweets weren't going to help me get closer to what I wanted to do, which was play college basketball. And so I did a month-long challenge. And after the month, my mom was like, well, I stopped. And so then I made a commitment to myself at 12 years old. I was not going to eat sweets again until I was done playing basketball, whenever that was, whenever the ball stopped bouncing. And so from 12 to 22, I did not have one soda, not one cake, not one ice cream, not one candy bar, no chips, no anything, like nothing. And everyone was like, what? And I was like, my one decision to say I don't eat sweets basically solved a lot of the decision-making process. It wasn't like every night we went out to dinner, I was like, am I eating sweets tonight or am I not eating sweets? I've never tasted alcohol. I'm 35 years old. In fact, in the book, I share a story of me turning down $10,000 for one shot of alcohol in Vegas nightclub one time from one of my clients. And he was basically like, I'm going to be able to bribe Drew into drinking. And I was like, listen, I made a decision. I made a commitment. I am not a drinker. And guess what? I've seen a lot of people that have drinking has caused a lot of problems in their life. And I've just decided I'm not going to, take part in that. That one decision, now I don't have to go out and say, is tonight the night I'm drinking? If I have one drink, I don't say, well, I already broke my streak of not drinking, so let's turn it into a scene from The Hangover. I just say I don't drink. So it's 100%, not 90%. And what happens is most people say, I'm going to do something most of the time. And then that gives them a little hall pass. So it'll say, you know what? I'm going to eat clean, but I get one cheat meal a week. Why do the cheat meal? Because then what you're going to do is you're going to pack on all those extra calories that you've been doing so well to save up. Every meal you're cutting calories, 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 and then you just go eat a whole pizza. It ruins all the work that you just put in. You say you're going to work out every day, and then you wake up and you don't feel like it. The weather's bad outside. The excuses start flowing. You give yourself a hall pass, and it's like, to me, it was like no hall pass. Like, this is what I'm doing, and I'm actually going to follow through. And I really believe that's where confidence comes from. Confidence comes from keeping the promises and commitments that you set with yourself. And I've always been a big believer. If I say I'm going to do something, I actually do it. And I think that most people just don't live that way.
That's really interesting. And I agree with you too, because we're so busy. We have so many things going on. Everybody does so many things on our plate. And if you can remove one decision, because a lot of times you could spend a lot of time sitting there all day being like, hey, I know I'm going out tonight. Like, am I going to drink or not? You already know the answer. And the best way I can relate to that is about 3 years ago on my Apple Watch. I'm like, I'm going to close all 3 rings every single day of my activity, my steps, my stand time. Like, all the 3 rings are going to close every day. So there's no decision like, oh man, it's 10 o'clock at night and I still got a ways to go. It's like, I know I'm going to do it. Like, I don't even have to think about it. And it's like you said, it's one of those things where it's easier to just commit, make that decision and know you're going to do it every single day. And
You know what's crazy? I'm going to add to this because there's a strategy in the book. I have a bunch of different real practical examples in the book. One of them is called checks and X's. So I wanted to get my 5-year-old nephew to start practicing. Now, at 5 years old, all you're trying to do is get them to fall in love with the game. You're not actually teaching them like technical skills. Like we do like a shot fake, which just means put the ball over your head, and a jab, which means step in, reach the ball at that time. But really, I just wanted him to understand that if you do something daily, you'll get better. And I wanted the habit of working out to be instilled in him at a young age. And so obviously, you can't get somebody at that age to want to play basketball and do drills. They might just like go and jack a couple shots and then go pick up their Batman and then go want to watch a TV show or whatever. And so what we did was on a calendar, I said, hey, listen, you want a new jersey? You want new shoes? You want new whatever? You have to fill up a whole calendar. Every day, you either put a check, a gold star, whatever you want, if you do the workout. And it was only 15 minutes a day that he had to commit to. If you don't, it's a big red X and you have to start the whole month over. I need 30 days in a row if you want this. And there were times where I promise you, where it would be like 9 o'clock at night and he was getting ready to go in bed and literally was like, and be like, I didn't do my workout for the day. And my sister, his mom, would be like, it's okay, you can just do 2 tomorrow. And he's like, no, Unky, which they call me Unky, Unky told me I have to do it every day, otherwise it doesn't count. And he'd get up and at 9 p.m. at night, 5-year-old would do a 15-minute workout just so he could get his check, his gold star, and move on. And so I'm like, if you can build that with a 5-year-old, you can definitely build it with these high school kids. And I just don't think that people put in enough hard work these days. They really don't. And so I go to camps and clinics all the time. And the first question I ask kids, how many of you guys raise your hand high if you would like to play college basketball? The majority of the kids' hands go up. Then I say, put your hands down. Second question, how many of you guys in here, if you continue to work the exact way you're working, lift the way you're lifting, eat the way you're eating, sleep the way you're sleeping, hang out with the people you hang out with, shoot the way you shoot, work out the way you work out, how many of you guys will get college scholarships? And maybe 2 hands go up out of 100 kids. And I go, so everybody that had your hand up and said, I want to play college basketball, and then had your hand down, I'm not doing enough to play college basketball, you realize you're just setting yourself up for failure. What you need to do is you need to make sure that, yes, I want to play college basketball. Okay, well, it's not do you want to play college basketball? It is, are you willing to do what you need to do to be able to play college basketball? That's the question you really need to be asking. So a lot of the book is talking about reframing things so that it's like the gut punch that you need so that you actually follow through. And it's with coaches too. How many coaches tell their players, my players, they can't shoot? Well, coach, did you develop shooters? If you have non-shooters on your team, that is your fault just as much as their fault. You've let them be lazy. You haven't taught them how to shoot. You're playing them regardless if they can shoot or not shoot. So that's on you. You've rewarded that. And I always say to coaches, what you see on the court is either what you've allowed or what you've taught. You've either allowed them to slip by or you've taught them the bad things that you don't like. Or in the opposite way, a positive way, you've taught them great things and you see great things. So, I mean, the book is a gut punch, man. It's really one of those things where it's really cool because I have a letter, Jason Tatum and Joel Embiid wrote the forward, but then right afterwards, it's a letter from me. And it literally starts out by saying, like, if you picked up this book, somewhere deep down, you've been bullshitting yourself. And we all do. We all know that there's areas in our life that we could improve if we just did the things we know we already need to know to do. But that's what this book is. And there's some really cool stories that hit the heart. And, it brought my dad, who is a manly man, to tears. One of the stories, reading about himself in there. And, there's some things that really will resonate with some coaches and players that I'm excited for them to get their hands on.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like kind of I mentioned on the lead in, you are what you put on tape. I mean, from an athlete, from a player standpoint. And so that's something too, like we have this vision of what we are in our head, but sometimes it's going to the tape and like you said, making those checks and balances and holding yourself accountable, both as a coach and as a player to be like, hey, what are we allowing and what are we doing to get better? It's like, what does our practice plan look like? Oh, we spend a majority of it on defense and now I'm complaining that we can't shoot or we can't score. It's like, how are you doing it? What are we doing to balance this out? And it sounds like this is a great blueprint to be able to kind of connect some of those dots.
100%. Yeah, no, like I said, I'm super excited. And it's also fun for players because when I was younger, I never read books. Like I didn't start reading until I was done playing college basketball. And it's fun. Like Zach LaVine, when I gave him a copy, he flipped it open to his section. He read his section. But then afterwards, he was like, started reading and he's like, bro, I love how easy this is because I can just read one section and then I can move on to the next section. Like it's not like I have to read a whole 25-page chapter. And so, he was joking when I was asking for testimonials for the book. He was like, literally, he was like, I hate reading books, but I actually like this one. I'm like, that's a great
That
testimonial. I'll
works.
take it. You know what I mean? So, yeah,
Awesome.
I'm really excited for people to actually apply the strategies, apply the mindset, and use the system to start getting results of their own.
So your principles and everything that you kind of were raised on, it sounds like family was a big influence on you. It sounds like region was a big influence on you as well. Obviously, Midwest, born and raised, correct? St. Louis, is that where we're from originally? What kind of impacts or what characteristics do you think that you really kind of took that you've seen in your travels across the country, across the world that us here in the Midwest tend to carry along with us?
I love the Midwest. I mean, the first thing is, a quote that my grandma used to tell me all the time. And this was when I first started, having some success in the business world and started to get some notoriety and actually make decent money. And she said, Drew, just remember one quote. You're never going to have everything that you want, but you're always going to have more than you need. And that mentality was ingrained in me, being a Midwesterner that, I was raised on very lower to middle class salary. And, if we wanted, nice things, we had to work for them. I was the guy that was doing lemonade stands and was cutting grass and was shoveling snow. And I remember when I saved up enough to get a snow plower where you could actually like push the snow plower to actually, get driveways done in like 10 minutes. And, yeah, but that was what I grew up on. It was if you want something, you got to work to get it. And I love it. I was never handed anything. And some people complain about the hand they're dealt, where I believe every hand has a potential to be a winner if you play it the right way. Another thing is just the humbleness of hard work, like good old fashioned hard work. Because a lot of times when I get these NBA athletes in my gym, they are shocked. They are absolutely shocked at how hard I push them. They're like, we're used to people kind of like wanting to take a picture and post us on social. Like I still grind like I grinded back when the day started. Cool story. My first ever NBA workout was with David Lee. David Lee being another St. Louis guy. I was in Nashville. That's where I went to school. I played at Belmont University, and I was working out John Jenkins there, who ended up playing in the NBA. He was leading scorer in the SEC for 2 seasons, and I was working him out. And I get a text message from David that says, hey man, heard you're the guy in St. Louis to train with. I'm going to be in town the next couple of days. Can I get some work in? I was obviously thrilled. I like remember waiting. I was like, I can't text him back too fast, but I got to remember to text him back. And then sure enough, I was like, when do you want to start? And he was like, does 8 a.m. tomorrow work? I'm in Nashville. I'm like, oh shoot. So I get in my car, I drive back. I get back at like midnight and I get on Synergy and I start watching film and I'm watching film and I'm watching film. At 7 a.m., I'm still watching film. I wanted to know everything I could about David's game, looking at analytics, numbers, everything. Show up to the gym an hour early, mop the floor, sweep the floor, then mop the floor. So it was perfect for him. And I remember he showed up a little bit late. And it's funny because I'll never forget, he pulled up in his Ferrari. I'd never seen a Ferrari in a real world. I'd seen it in like on commercials and stuff. And he pulls up to this little gym, my gym, Shrewsbury City Center gym in a Ferrari, and you hear the room, room, him pulling in, but he's late. And so I said, hey, on the line. I never had met him before. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, I got a rule if you show up late to workouts. He's like, bro, I've never been to this shitty gym. Like, it doesn't even have fucking air conditioning in it. I was like, on the line. And we didn't run. He definitely didn't run like I'd make my other guys, but he jogged up and down and I did it with him. He's like, you're running with me. I was like, okay. But the point was, I held him accountable. And
Mhm.
then during that workout, we went through and he was struggling on one thing. And I said, David, you got to do this. And he said, bro, you're just training me like a guard because you don't know how to work with big guys. And I went over and I had printed out all of his analytics. And I said, look, you shot 19% over your left shoulder and 33% over your right shoulder on hooks last season. And if you do this, you'll start making them. And fortunately for me, he made like 6 or 8 in a row. And after the workout, he goes, just so you know, I was planning on working with you one time. Our AAU coaches, we shared the same AAU team. He just kept begging me to give you a chance. And I just planned to work with you once so I could say I did it and then just move on. He goes, but you were the first person that really held me accountable. So to me, that was what the Midwest brought in me, was that toughness, the tenacity, the just, dirty nails. Like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you got to get in the trenches. And I still have that same approach today.
It's funny you talk about that. We were actually talking with some coaches last night at some high school games. These kids are much more pampered than we were coming up, but they they want accountability. And I feel like we just have so much with AAU, with everything going on, that it's yes, 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 yes. At the end of the day, when it all breaks down, like giving these players some accountability, holding them accountable to what they want to do, it's going to make them better. And ultimately, that's what they want from a coach, right? Is the ability to make them better. And it's just finding those little ways, like you said, that whether it's you having receipts, like, hey, here's the deal, I did my work, now you do your work. It just makes a huge difference in pushing these players to get better.
There's a chapter in here that's called Hate Me Now, Thank Me Later. Hate Me Now, Thank Me Later. And it is from my high school coach. And here's a story, because it's great, because you have a lot of coaches that are listening, and also hopefully some players tune into this once we share it. Um, Freshman year in high school, I'm one of the most talented offensive players in St. Louis. Shot, I think 46 or 7% from three my freshman year, really contributed on a team that the only team we lost to in the state of Missouri was Tyler Hansborough's team. That's who we got knocked out by, which is obviously he was one of the best, players in the country that year. And, but he wouldn't play me on, as soon as I made one defensive mistake, I was out. And at practice, I was all-time defense. We played make it, take it. I never got to take it. It was always, Drew's on defense. And I hated it. And there were many times where I came home and I was like, I'm transferring. All these other coaches in the area were recruiting me. They were like, yo, he's screwing you. Come over to us. We'll let you get buckets. What is he doing? He's not using you like you should use. And my mom's like, you realize that the reason he's coaching you that hard is because he cares about you. And so, sure enough, fast forward my junior year, going into senior year, that summer, I'm playing at the Nike Peach Gym. And I get matched up with Kendall Marshall, who ended up playing at North Carolina and then playing in the NBA. He was the number one point guard in the country for a younger class. I think I was 2 years older than him, but he was playing up on the U17s. And that day, I held him to 1 for 11 shooting from the field. I scored 8 points in the game. I was 2 for 3 from the field, and I made 2 free throws. 2 for 3 from three and 2 free throws. That was my offensive production that game. And I got 12 Division I scholarships after the game. And I'm like, man, thank God that Coach Blossom held me accountable, forced me to play defense. And that's when I really learned great coaches force you to do what you need to do and don't let you do what you want to do. They make you do the most beneficial thing instead of allowing you to do the easiest thing. And so I'm very fortunate that I had an amazing high school coach and Coach Blossom that, really held me accountable and made me do a lot of things that necessarily weren't fun. And I hated at the time. But I didn't run from them. I got better because of them. And so, I hope that coaches out there are listening, understand that like good coaching is all about getting your players to do exactly what they need to do. But also you got to communicate why, because if you can help somebody understand why. So I'll give you an example. If Coach Blossom came to me and said, hey, I need you to play defense because we need this, it really wouldn't motivate me. But when he came to me, he said, hey, listen, do you want to play college basketball? Well, then you're going to need to play defense. Well, now that gives me a reason selfishly to do it. We all act out of selfishness. So if coaches need their players to, let's say, box out more, instead of saying we need to box out more, well, yeah, everyone knows, but they don't want to do that part. But if you say, hey, listen, guys, if we box out more and we give up less offensive rebounds, then that means we're going to win more. If we win more, all of you guys are going to advance more. And if you advance more, you're going to get seen more and you're going to get more awards. Oh, now I'll box out because now I want those awards. That's all I really care. All I heard is if I box out more, I get more awards. We win more games. We win more. So you got to relay it to them instead of making it about the team, make it about them. And if you can help everybody improve internally so that ultimately the whole gets better too, that's when you really win.
Well, and I think too, it's just having the ability to see the big picture of things too, and oftentimes we get caught or bogged down in winning the next game or whatever it is. If you have a coach that has the ability to understand that these players or that player or whatever has bigger goals, wants to be able to play at the next level, wants to do some of those stuff, and you're willing to maybe sacrifice in the short term, you might lose a game that maybe you shouldn't have for the good of that player or the good of the team moving forward because you know that it's going to benefit them. It's easier said than done. We're like, oh yeah, if we knew what the result was going to be, then we would make that sacrifice right now. But it's just hard in that moment to make that sacrifice and not know if this outcome is going to come. But like you said, the good coaches, whether have been there or just have a perspective that allows them to say like, hey, Drew, if you lock down defensively, you are going to become a Division I basketball player. And finding ways to sacrifice his own benefit for your benefit, and then ultimately, we all know as coaches, when your players succeed, that's what feels the best anyway.
Of course. No, you nailed it. I mean, I think that's so important. And I think that's what truly makes a special coach a special, because I watch it all the time. Coaches that go to coaches clinics and they take notes and then they change everything they do. Or I watch coaches that watch videos and then they go, and I'm like, really what matters is pouring into your players. You know what I mean? Like your players have a lot of the answers you're looking for. And if you just talk to them, get to know them, know what's going on in their life off the court as well. I talk about it all the time. A lot of times things that happen off the court bleed on the court, and so you might have a situation at home that you don't know about that's causing those things. And now you bark at them and they snap, and you didn't realize it was because something was going on in their house that, was bigger than basketball. So I think that's what the great coaches do. They connect before they convince. They connect with their players before they try to convince their players to do certain things. And, I was fortunate to have a couple of coaches that really poured into me. And now I try to be that coach for so many others.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's the constant quote I feel like you hear all the time. They don't care what you know until they know that you care. And that's, ultimately what it is especially with these young kids, they want to know that you care about them, you're there to protect them. And so that's awesome. You spent some time in Iowa. You did the
A ton of time in Iowa.
ton of time in Iowa. I know you helped Coach Show up do some camps as well. But tell me a little bit, walk me through a little bit of the journey of Iowa and where the connection comes there.
Man, there's a ton. Like I told you off camera before we started, like you were like, is there any connection to Iowa? It's like a big one. It played a big part of my development. Starting off, I used to do so many different camps in Iowa, Anarchy, Iowa, Iowa City, did the quads, I did obviously Snow Valley
So,
basketball camp. I've done Des Moines. I've done so many different camps, with different high school teams, with different AAU teams. Coach Show, I remember even when I was training NBA guys, I still would come back every other year. I made a commitment to come back, and I was still, sleeping on those dorm beds and waking up at 6 a.m. and doing all that kind of stuff. But, Coach Show does such a good job of pouring into the community. And I really do think that Iowa's special when it comes to basketball, because I do think there are a lot of coaches that really care. And I think there's a lot of players that really love the game. And it's weird because my company's name is Pure Sweat, and it was came up with by me and my high school coach. And we did a whiteboard session of like what we wanted our camp to be called at the time. And we did a brain dump. And one of the things we talked about was we want to bring the fundamentals back to America's game. And then the other thing that we talked about was like keeping the purity of the game alive. And so pure in the Pure Sweat comes from purity of the game. And I think that Iowa, I just feel like there's such a pure, like there's not a ton of athletes that are going out and windmill dunking, and it's just the purity of the game is still there to me, and so I've always been attracted to it. And like I told you off camera too, I mean, I actually spent a night in my car one night when I was doing some smaller camps in Iowa. I don't even remember the cities, to be honest with you. They were like no namers, like no
yep.
namers. Like even people in Iowa, when I said where they were, they're like, "Where was that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, exactly." But I remember there were nights where like I'd go do a workout, and let's say I was charging $20 a kid, and let's say I had, 20 kids come, you don't make much money. And so you're like, I'm not going to spend more than half of it on a hotel. And so I would find a Holiday Inn parking lot and turn up the heat on the car and then turn it off. And then, and sure enough, one night I got a knock on the window from somebody like, excuse me, sir, you can't be parked. You can't be parked here. And I was like, oh, I'm checking in tomorrow. I wasn't checking in tomorrow, but yeah, there's a ton of cool stories about Iowa, and I'm forever grateful for the part that Iowa's played in the development of all the things that I do now.
That's awesome. Well, one of those connections with Iowa's through Iowa State and one of your clients in Tyrese Halliburton. How'd that come about? How was that something that you were able to get Tyrese on your list?
So Ty, really cool story. It's actually there's a whole part in the book about mentality, and Ty leads it off. So the true story is he was basically playing for the Sacramento Kings. He was averaging 12 points a game, and his agent thought he needed to improve his mentality. And so his agent was like, "Is there any way that we could get together and you just talk to Ty and then eventually work with Ty?" And so I was in Philadelphia working with Joel Embiid, and the Kings were getting ready to play against the Sixers. And so he organized a dinner, his agent did, for me, Ty, and him to go to dinner. So we sit down at dinner. Ty's averaging 12 points a game at the time. And hey, what's up? And I flip over and I flip open the analytics. And I'm like, are you better than this point guard? Are you better than this point guard? Are you better than this guy? Are you better than this? And I started going through, and Ty's like, yes, no, yes, no. He ranked himself, I think, at the time, like the 20th best point guard or something. And I was like, do you want to be an all-star? He's like, yes. I'm like, well, that means, and I started going down the list of the guys that he had to beat out to be all-star. Do you want to be all NBA? What do you want to do in your career? What do you, And he was like, damn, bro, you're grilling me. And I'm like, this is what it takes. And so I said, if you want to work with me tomorrow night against the Sixers, you have to shoot at least 14 FGAs. He's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, because I need to see that you can take a step towards being more aggressive. If you ever want to be good, like great, you're going to have to be more aggressive. I know you can pass. Everybody knows you can pass, but you got to be a better scorer. And so I was like, I don't care if you go 0 for 14 or if you go 14 for 14. You got to shoot at least 14 FGAs, not 12. And then I had 8 free throws, but they followed me when I shot. No, 14 FGAs. Next night, 11 for 19, career high 38 points. He had never had over 28 in his career. And I remember George Niang, another Iowa guy. George Niang was because he was on the Sixers at the time. He's walking around back. I'm by the locker room, the Sixers locker room after the game, and he has his arm around Ty, and he goes, "Yo, I heard he took you out on a date last night, and you told him to shoot the ball more." He goes, "If it takes one dinner to get career high, I'd love to take you on a date too." And like, if you know George, he's
That's
hilarious.
George.
So,
Yeah.
but that's how Ty and I started working together. Was honestly that one game, and then since then he's developed into a starting all-star point guard, and he still battles it though. I mean, there are games that I am still beating him up. You know what I mean? Like there's games where I'm literally going like this. I'm bringing the book and doing this, like stop bullshitting yourself, like shoot the ball, like you know what I mean. So he's such an elite passer. He's such a talented player, but he definitely, like a lot of players, needs that constant reminder to do more of what makes his team really special, which is be more aggressive.
Talk to me a little bit about this NBA confidence because it is, I mean, for an outsider perspective, if they really knew the confidence that every single one of those guys in the locker room had, it'd probably be disgusting. But at the same time, that's what it needs to be able to play at that level. It was something
Yes and
that,
no. Yes
yes,
and no. I would say that you have no clue of the amount of insecurity that's in locker
really,
room. You have the no amount of like it is like this. Confidence wavers way more than you. It is just like kids. Like I joke around all the time and I say that like I got 3 jobs and I'm like one is being a trainer, 2 is being a babysitter, and 3 is being a therapist. Like it is literally a lot of that. So no, it's just to be honest with you, it is just like high school. It's just these guys are a lot better. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And so the best players, they have what I call unbreakable faith. It might bend, but it doesn't break. The other thing that NBA players have is a better perspective. And so what I mean by that is NBA players know that there's 82 games. They're likely going to sit out 10 of them because of like injuries or stuff like that. And so if they're going to sit out 10 games, there's 72 games. They know 10 of them they're going to be great. 10 of them they're going to be terrible. And 52 of them they're going to be average. Whereas high school players and college players, they think every game is make or break. They think a good game means they're a good player, a bad game means they're a bad player, a great game means they're a great player, and theirs is like this. So I think that's the one difference. But you would be surprised at the amount of stuff. And again, that's what this book is for. This book is literally for my players. It's literally all the stories I share with them to help them with their mentality, their confidence. But Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, Halliburton, when I asked them for testimonials, not one of them talked about basketball. It was crazy. Every single one was like, Drew improved my mentality, Drew improved my confidence, Drew improved my swagger, Drew improved my aggressiveness. Like, and that's what it really is. It's about shaping these guys' mindsets so that they can get the results because they're all talented basketball wise, but it's the mentality part that really takes them to the next level.
Which is interesting too, because just probably about 2 months ago, I had Peyton Sanford on the podcast and talked with him. Obviously, player at Iowa that went through the NBA Combine and the whole process. Shooter, and it was fun to talk with him. And he constantly, yeah, it's a lot of what we normally do, but the confidence that those guys have, the ability, the mindset, like we just kept going back to the mindset and the confidence that it takes to play at a high level. And honestly, anything. I mean, whether you're trying to play basketball at the highest level, whether you're trying to do business at the highest level, it is something in which that your mindset and your beliefs and what you take into that every single day is ultimately what you're going to get out of it and what's going to shape you.
No, 100%. I mean, my biggest thing that I always do is unseen hours. You know what I mean? Like what you do when no one's watching, when you could cheat, but you're only cheating yourself. Those are the moments that define you. And so the decisions and actions you take and make when no one's around, no one's holding you accountable, that's what ultimately determines the life you're going to live, the game that you're going to have, the career you're going to have, all of those things. So, I really do. I think about those moments of people in the gym, like dripping in sweat at the point of exhaustion when no one's watching. I think about the moment where there's a fat person in a cabinet and they're getting ready to sneak a snack, and I'm like, you're only cheating yourself. You're gonna have to live with that
Nobody else.
body that you're cheating. So it's like that. Those are the things that I think about that stand out to me of like the make or break moments, but those little decisions end up being costly ones or really beneficial ones, depending on what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to Tyrese a little bit and just training and we're the shooters touch here. We talk hashtag shooters shoot. That's what we do. Talk to me about shot mechanics and what your thoughts are. I think with some of that, obviously no one shot's the same. We fully know and understand that. You stick with what works, but how much of any of that are you adjusting or changing, and who kind of starts that conversation? Is that something you do or something that players might be like, hey, I want my release to be higher. I want to get my hand underneath the ball more. Like how do you treat the shot in general?
It's all results based, and it is if it's working, it's working. If it's not, we're fixing it. And so, I think that with Tyrese, like the only problem with not changing a shot is if you have a unconventional shot, it's hard to make changes when things go south. So, beginning of this season, when he was struggling, he laughs about it now because he's out of the slump, but he FaceTimed me and was like, bro, he's like, what am I doing? Why can't I make a shot? And I was like, I don't know, do a little bit less of this, like a little bit, just a little bit less of that. And he's like, you are such an asshole. Like the truth is like, he's always been a, 40% shooter in high school, 40% shooter in college, 40% shooter in the NBA. So if it's not broke, don't break it. But also you're always trying to fine tune little things if you can improve it. I do think that there are some characteristics that all good shooters have. A lot of them, it doesn't matter how they start their shot. They get the middle of the hand in the basically the perfect slot at the top of the release. So their hand is in the middle of the ball at the point of release. That's one. Two, I think they shoot a high straight shot. So they have good backspin and it's straight. So their follow through is straight. Their snap is straight. That's number two. Number three is I think they maintain balance on their shot. They establish good balance and keep that balance throughout their shot. And then, number four is the connectivity, the fluidity of the shot. I think everything's connected. Lower body is generating power for the upper body. So it's not arm driven where then when you get tired later in a game, you're coming up short or flat. And then the last thing that I always say is confidence. You got to believe it's going in. Otherwise you shouldn't be taking it. So, I'm big on like the 3 C's: consistent, comfortable, and confident. You got to be comfortable in your shot mechanics. You got to be consistent so that they're repeatable, the same thing over and over again. That develops confidence as well. And then the last thing is you just got to believe it's going in. You know what I mean? So I do think that there are some things that really help players, but if a guy can really shoot it and they shoot it unconventionally, I normally just kind of let it go. And I might give them a little advice. Hey, when you go forward, you end up making more shots, or when your shoulders are forward, you make more shots, or hey, when you do this on your pickup, it's a little cleaner and then you make more shots. So, but it's more just compare and contrast. You look at what they do when they make it, what they do when they miss it, and try to spot the differences. But it's a big game of where's Waldo. You try to find the little things that no one else sees, and those little things become huge in the long run.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. And it's funny as you were going through some of those too, I was like breaking down Caitlin Clark, obviously Iowa,
She's a
breaking
big
down her
thumb
shot.
flicker,
Yep.
and I'm 17th all time still in Division I 3-point shooting for a season. I was at 48.2 my senior year, and I was a big thumb shooter. And it's
Yep.
funny because when I do instructional videos, I don't use my thumb because I don't want it to look bad on camera. But when I play games, I still use my thumb, and it's one of those things where I do think that if your thumb imparts side spin, it can hurt you. Mine, for whatever reason, I trained it to impart actually more backspin, which helped me. So I think that the similarities between Caitlin and myself, Tyrese, we all shot a lot of shots. I shot 1,000 shots before school every morning. Well, obviously, I'm gonna be a good shooter. I did something 1,000 shots every single day, and I was making 850 out of 1,000. Which, when you see the ball go in 850 times before everybody else wakes up, you got confidence that things going in a game. So Caitlin puts in the work, Tyrese puts in the work. I mean, that's what all great shooters have in common is, there are some similarities in their mechanics, but the one thing they all have in common is they put in the reps, they put in the work. And I don't think there's anything that can substitute that. I think you have to put in the work if you want to be a confident and a shooter that ends up getting results in games.
Yeah, that's 100% comfortable and confident. I mean, that's Caitlin to a part right there. Again, it's because she has put in the work, and so fun to watch her shoot the basketball. I want to talk real briefly, just because we have Belmont in the Valley now. So Valley, obviously, you and I, Drake. Take me a little bit through the time at Belmont. What was the deal? I have not been. All I've heard is how awesome that campus is. How did you get from St. Louis to Belmont, and then what was that college career like for you?
It was crazy because when they first called me, I didn't even call them back. I had never heard of Belmont, and this was, they had been to two NCAA tournaments my sophomore and junior year in high school. And I remember them leaving a message the second time around, and we're like, hey, we've been to the last 2 tournaments. And then my senior year, it's funny because I committed to Belmont, and I'll talk to you about how I got there, but I committed to Belmont. And then they end up losing to Duke in the first round of the NCAA tournament by one that year. And everybody, all my friends were like, yo, they're good now. Like, you know what I mean? Because they had got blasted the 2 previous years in the NCAA tournament. But I mean, I had a great experience. When I was going through colleges and what choices I should make, I kept asking myself, like, not what's going to be a fun 4 years, but what's going to set me up for the next 40 years. And I really wasn't looking at what's the biggest name. I was looking at what's the best fit. And I fell in love with Belmont. They had a great entrepreneurship program, which I knew would help me expand my business. I love the players and coaches and support staff. And I knew that that was going to be who I spent 80 or more percent of my time with. And I love the basketball program. I wanted to win. I wanted to win, and I wanted to be able to compete for conference championships. I wanted to be able to play in NCAA tournament championships, and you know, I was fortunate to do those things. You know, I played in 2 NCAA tournaments, and like I said, my senior year, I was first team all conference, and you know, was up there as one of the best 3-point shooters in NCAA history. So had some great moments. But you know, the big thing that I took away from all of that experience was you got to choose a good fit. You know, and I think so many players, especially now with the portal and the transferring and even the NIL, I understand if you get life-changing money, sometimes you have to say yes because that's best for you and your family. But you know, I really do think some players end up hurting themselves because they end up choosing just the biggest salary or just the biggest name instead of the best fit that's ultimately going to groom them into the best person and player that they can become. And so I looked at it more holistically than most. Most people just look at what's the biggest name that sounds the best, or what's the best basketball team that I can try to squeeze my way into. And I looked at like, what's the best fit? You know, where am I going to feel the most comfortable? Where am I going to be the happiest? And I couldn't be, you know, happier with the decision that I made. And it's fun now following them in the Valley and, you know, competing, you know, as each year they keep, you know, growing more and more and getting better and better. And so it's been fun to watch. And, you know, one of my teammates, Ian Clark, made the NBA, which was unheard of at the time. You know, a lot of our top players, we all thought we were going to go play overseas, and that was something that we had established. And Belmont did a good job of getting guys ready for overseas basketball. But you know, now him and you know, Ben playing, you know, up in Indiana, and Dylan Windler, who got drafted with the Cavs. I mean, we've had, you know, 3 guys get drafted, you know, since I've been there, which is you know, great for a mid-major program.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then you also had an opportunity. Did you play at Cameron Indoor? You had an opportunity to go to Duke, right? When you were there or
We
not?
lost by one at Cameron my senior year. It's funny because I'm good friends with John Shire now because of Jason Tatum and a couple of the other guys that have worked out Dukies. And I always give them trouble because I'm like, you guys have played Duke. We've played Duke twice. We've lost both times by one. But I'm like, you guys are afraid to come to our house. Like, you know what I
Oh
mean? We
yeah.
played on a neutral site, lost by one. We played at Cameron. I was like, come to us. See how that plays out for you guys. So, you know, it was awesome. Played at Kansas, which was awesome when they were number one in the country with Sharon Collins and
Oh yeah.
Xavier Henry. And they had, I mean, they had so many
Yeah.
players that year. They had Cole Aldridge. Played at Pittsburgh when they were number one in the country, when they had Levance Fields and Sam Young. And, you know, I forgot who their other guard was that was really good. But yeah, I mean, I got so many great experiences and played in two NCAA tournaments. So something that younger me, you know, dreamed of when I used to fill out my brackets every year and play one-on-one in the driveway.
That's amazing. And like you said, it's all about fit too. I mean, it's something where you could have chased whatever, you could have chased a higher level and never had those opportunities because you were too busy jumping around and too busy trying to find the thing. But you've go with your gut and find what works and it's the right fit, you know, regardless of level too. Maybe a stint at D2 or whatever it is for those players out there. It's all about finding fit. And so, well, perfect. Hey, I got 2 more here and then I'll get you out of here. But so Jason Tatum, obviously, I know one of your higher end clients. Tell me a little bit about this and how that came about. But he's a St. Louis guy though, and so I assume that's where the connections start. How did that come about, and ultimately, what's it like working and helping him continue to improve his game?
Yeah, as a middle schooler, his mom reached out and I turned him down. I was like, I don't have time to take on any more like younger athletes. And she reached out to Brad Beal. Believe it or not, she used to babysit Brad. Jason's mom did. And she also played volleyball for Brad Beal's mom, who was a volleyball coach.
Okay.
And so there was a connection there. Brad said, hey, do me a favor. There's like a little brother to me. And I told Jason if he could make it through the first workout, then I would take him on. And so as a 13-year-old, I killed him. In the book, the foreword talks about him. He's like, I had to leave the gym twice to throw up during the first workout, but they were going to have to drag me off the court before I gave up. And once I knew that he had that mentality, we started working together. And we've been working together for the last 13 years now. So it's been really cool to see his growth. It was really fun being there for game 5 last year when they won the title and being on the court. I remember he hugged his mom and he came over and hugged me and was like, "We did it." I was like, "No, you did it. I didn't do anything. I was up there clapping in the crowd."
Yeah.
But it's so fun to see all of his hard work pay off. And he signed the biggest deal in NBA history. He's been a couple time first team All NBA guy, won 2 Olympic gold medals, won a championship now. And he's 26. He hasn't even hit his prime yet. So really special things. But I remember back the days at 6 a.m. when we were going to Chaminade, his high school and putting in work and stuff like that. That's what stands out to me, is that he always was searching for ways to get better. And there's so many cool stories in the book about his high school days of him developing the killer mentality that he has today.
That starting five, obviously, that Netflix did with him was really awesome to be able to see kind of insight behind him. Always been a player that always super intrigued, just seems so well put together. And so to be able to have a little bit of that look behind the curtain for the rest of us was definitely neat to see. And I feel like you said, the fact that he's only 26, I feel like you forget about it because you feel like he's been in the league. He's been successful since he walked in the league. And so you kind of forget a little bit. How much of the book do you think pulled him through the Olympics and all that stuff, and being able to cut through the bullshit and figure out that, like, hey, I'm still one of the best 5, 6 players in the world?
Trust me, that the Olympics impacted guys more than people thought. You know what I mean? When guys had expectations of doing certain things and the reality was down. But that's what makes these guys professional, is they bounce back, and so I think you saw how Jason responded. He came out and he's putting together a MVP level type campaign. And that's what we always talk about: build evidence, build proof. Confidence is overrated. Build proof, build evidence. And, if you stack enough evidence, you turn to that evidence and believe in yourself. And so trust me, he stacked plenty of evidence to prove to himself and others that he's a great basketball player. And he's going to continue to, pile up that evidence as his career goes on.
That's good. Well, good. Coach, 2 quick ones here, and then I'll get you out of here. One, we talk a decent amount about shoes and sneakers too on here. Do you have a favorite basketball shoe of all time?
I mean, Jason's new shoe is like my favorite shoe, but honestly, I think it means a lot too. Back in the day, it's funny because back in the day, I remember my first pair of $100 basketball shoes were the Gary Payton gloves. And
Mm.
I remember like putting them back in the box, and then you put the box in your backpack because they could not touch outdoors, and then one of my favorite shoes that I used to wear when I was growing up outside of that was the Tracy McGrady's, the like slip on Tracy McGrady's that kind of had like
Oh yeah.
that you could really tie them tight. And Jason's shoe now basically takes in that same concept. And so, I love Jason's shoe. It was funny because I gave him trouble on his first ones. I was like, they look good, but like I didn't like that there was a little air bubble in them that was like open and exposed. And then his second ones were awesome, and his third ones are even improved. So my favorite shoes by far the JT3, and obviously I love just being able to wear his logo and support all the things that I know that he represents.
That's good. All right, last one here, and I'll get you out of here. But growing up St. Louis kid, roughly the same age, how big an impact did Nelly and the St. Lunatics have on your childhood, if at all, growing up?
Man, we love Nelly. I'll tell you, that was the best time of St. Louis. 2000s, you had Mark McGuire in 98 break
Okay,
the home run record, which was peak Cardinals fan, even though they didn't win. They didn't win. They actually didn't make the playoffs that year. A lot of people don't know that, but
give you
that
something to
was
watch.
peak Cardinals fan entertainment, Mark McGuire. Then you got the greatest show on turf with the St. Louis Rams winning, win the Super Bowl.
Kurt
Uh,
Warner, Iowa,
then
shout
then
out.
you have Nelly come out with Country Grammar, the top guy, and you had a bunch of other artists, Murphy Lee and Chingy and Jaquan, and there were so many other ones that had these one-off songs or a couple songs that were on the market. So I say that was
St.
a fun
Louis was
time.
on
That's
the
still my
map.
favorite music. That's still my favorite music. I still
Yes.
love, listen to old school Lil Wayne, Nelly.
Yep.
That's still my favorite music. So that was a great time in St. Louis for sure.
That's yeah, absolutely. Put St. Louis, put Midwest on the map, like in the spotlight, more than on the map, in the spotlight there for a while. Fun time to be a Midwestern, fun time to grow up, that's for sure. So, Drew, we appreciate you taking some time. Give a little shout out here. We'll tag you and everything, but where can we find you? Book coming out, pre-orders available. Give me the spiel here quick before we get you out of here.
Yeah, it's easy. I mean, drewhanlen.com. I've got the pre-order stuff. Everybody that pre-orders gets a master class, a 33-minute video that me taking them through the whole system in the book. We're also doing some Q&As with NBA players coming up. If you buy a book, you get access to the Q&As. So really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say, hey, listen, the bonuses are worth way more than even the book cost, but you get the book too. So really, I just want to help as many people as possible. You know, I don't think people don't realize that, like, I make $1 a book. You know, it's so for me, it's not like this isn't a money making thing for me. This is a impact thing. And so I really do want to help as many players and coaches and trainers and everyday people that you know, have something that they want to change about their life or their game or their business or their body. I want to help them get those results. So drewhanlen.com, pre-order the book, look out for it, and take advantage of all the bonuses that I'm giving to everybody that pre-orders.
There you go. We appreciate it. As always, shooters shoot.
Appreciate you.